Before we begin this episode, I want to thank the Spoiler Force patrons for their patronage. Thank you to Mong Her, Orion Vang, Lor Su Yang, and Yilang Li. Thank you guys for the support.
This is Rob McCollum, and you're watching Spoiler Force Podcast.
All right, so this is episode 126 of Spoiler Force Podcast. My name is Ricky, and thank you for tuning in. This week's guest is someone I am extremely excited to have. He is a voice acting veteran. You may have heard his voice on shows like Dragonball GT, Gridman, One Piece, YuYu Hakusho, Attack on Titan, one of my personal favorites. What else? So many other shows that I just can't think of, but I want to bring him on right now just so I can speak with him. Rob McCollum, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Ricky, you're welcome. Your background looks so much nicer than mine. I'm just in the sound booth because it's really loud here. So this is my closet sound booth, and it has none of the cool. You got cool graphics. You got everything going on there.
I've been like working on this wall for I think almost a month now. I I've been really blessed by a friend, James Lee. He owns a printing shop, Octo Customs. He's all the way from Michigan. He sent me that Spoiler Force banner for free.
Very nice. Shout out to James Lee.
Yeah, so he was really cool about that. And then as you can see the pictures back here, just photo ops at conventions, some artwork done by like other artists I've met at anime conventions, and then yeah, I'm working on putting on some shelves soon so I can display like some figures. Speaking of Attack on Titan, I don't have Reiner, but Levi will do. So
that'll work. Yeah, there's not a Reiner, but there is a pop of the Titan. Version. And I've gotten a couple of those. I was gonna buy a bunch to like sign and sell at conventions, and they are sold out everywhere. Like nobody can get their hands on any Titan pops right now.
I know they're coming up with another new wave. They're doing like another, I think a season 4 Aaron and Mikasa, I believe, and then there's also like another version of Annie that's glow in the dark.
Yeah, so that would be very cool. Mikasa has so many. Trina Nishimura has so many pops. I have pop envy. I did get a Stain pop though. I was excited about that. Stain from My Hero Academia.
I got that pop too. When that dropped for New York Comic Con, I had to cop that really fast. That and the Dobby one, my God, those were selling like hotcakes.
I was just amazed that Stain got his own pop. He's in like so few episodes, and he's got like 3.5 minutes of total screen time. So it's more than that, but it's a very small amount of screen time.
He's definitely a fan favorite for sure.
Yeah, well, and he kind of was a pivot point for that show. I didn't know what I was getting into when I got to do that. I was like, yeah, I'll come do a role that's only in like 4 episodes. Sure, no problem. And then I was like, oh, he has a long shadow. He has some impact, even though we don't see him anymore.
What was your thoughts on that when you were voicing Stain? Because like My Hero is becoming it is really a big mainstream anime.
Oh, it's massive now. Yeah, we knew it was going to be big. We did not know it was going to be as big as it was. And I had been traveling a lot for other jobs and other work, so I kind of missed out on the first round of auditions, and I was very bummed that I didn't get to be in, one of the instructors or one of the more regular characters, one of the bad guys. And then Colleen Klinkenbeard called me. She's like, hey, I want you to come in and read for this. And we'll just go ahead and schedule the session. And if it's terrible, we won't use it. But if it's rather than have you audition, let's just go ahead and record like a full couple of episodes so we can get into it. And then if it works out, we'll use it. If not, we'll just pay you for your time and you won't ever get to be in the show. It's like, okay, all right. But I didn't know anything she didn't tell me anything more. I didn't know who I was coming in to read for, what I was coming in to read for, anything like that. And she had kind of a pretty clear vision of what she thought I could do with it. We've known each other for many, many, many years. We're kind of some of the old guard of Funimation. So she knows what I sound like. She's like, I want you to do your raspy thing. And there's a lot of tongue acting. I was like, excuse me? She's like, yeah. There's a lot of tongue acting with Stain. He has his tongue out of his mouth a lot of the time. And I'm like, okay, do you want me to do that? And she's like, well, we need to understand you. Because it kind of sounds like the Japanese actor doesn't even care, even if his tongue is completely out. He just talks. I'm like, well, let's try for a happy middle ground of a little bit of tongue out while talking. And so we just played with it for a day and kind of found the character. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll get to do this for real. And then got called back in for a few, and then totally got into it. Realized this was a totally cool character, built up to the and we're talking spoilers here. So if you have not seen My Hero Academia, earmuffs, I'll tell you when to take them off. When I take my hands off, that means spoilers are done. But yeah, when it gets to Stain's final episode where he has this big epic speech and locks up, I thought the video had glitched in the booth. I thought like something was wrong or that the engineer had paused it. And I'm like, what happened? And they're like, no, that's it. I'm like, oh, really? Is that the end of the episode? And they're like, no, that's kind of it for Stain. I'm like, wait, okay, you're safe now. I was like, wait, what? But I mean, he's going to come back next episode and we'll find out what happened, right? And they're like, no. I was like, well, but he's going to be back next season, right? Like, Chili or Soko back around. No. But I still have hope. I still have hope because there is one frame of the manga.
Yep.
Where you see him in the prison as All Might's walking past, just going to see somebody else. He's in there, still locked up. So I'm like, all right, there's going to be some kind of, Silence of the Lambs where they come and need his help. He's going to blacklist them. They're going to need to come talk to Stain at some point in time, I believe.
I've caught up on the manga, so I won't spoil anything for anyone. But yeah, I cannot wait to see what they'll do with Stain, because technically they didn't even say, even in the anime, they didn't mention like he didn't die or anything. He just locked
no
up.
information. Yeah.
He's just... So for anime viewers, it's kind of obvious he's still alive. I mean,
they're definitely leaving the door open to coming back to that. No idea if and when it's going to happen. But
in the show itself, like, they're very, I don't want to say it's not too kid friendly, but then they don't really solidify like deaths in the show. They'll do like big fights. It's impactful, and then they're arrested or something. It's there could be deaths, but I don't think they want to go that dark.
Well, that's the other thing. Also, I felt like Stain was a real turning point, or the Stain arc, I guess, was a turning point, because it was very much a kid-friendly show, and then the tone changed and the seriousness of the show changed. Pre-Stain and after Stain, it's a lot more about like, what are your real motivations? Who are you as a person, as opposed to I'm gonna try hard and do good. And that was like pre-Stain. That was like my hero. I was like, everybody's mean to me, but I'm going to keep trying. And then it got like, oh, people are dying. And are you really a good person? So I feel like it stepped the game up a little bit. Not because of my performance. I'm not like taking credit for changing my hero, but that's what the manga did. And also the anime did, was I feel like it got into a darker, more grown up territory post Stain.
Oh, I think you deserve some credit for that too. You got to voice that character, man. I agree with that. If it wasn't for that, plus that fight in season 2, man, you cannot deny that was a great fight scene.
It's epic.
Like, everything about that was like you said. It's such a turning point in My Hero, because they went from the school festival and then it just straight to they're fighting like legit criminals and their lives on the line type deal.
Yeah.
And so I really like that tone shift, because they don't want to make it too like kid friendly to where like it's only gonna attract
they're gonna lose viewers. They're gonna lose the rest of the folks.
So I think that was great. But to bring up like the acting you did about the whole like the using like tongue and like creating those kind of noises, you also voiced Hirudagard from one of the Dragon Ball Z movies, the big giant monster, man. Because I remember I still have the game, the Tenkaichi 3 game. And in the game, you can go into like the credits and see all the voices or the actors who voiced them. And your names definitely stuck out to me, because that's how I learned a lot about these voice actors, was through those games. Like, you see who's voicing them. But how was that like voicing a pretty much a big monster like that?
Well, the funniest thing is that was way back.
Yeah,
the original of that, I don't even know what year it was, but I think we're talking like 98, 99, somewhere that far back. And so when it came and that was all pre-digital, that was all tape to tape, and then it got sent off and it got digitized and put on the DVDs. So there were no like video files and audio files in the way that we think of them now. It was going straight to actually 3/4 inch tape. So when it came time to do the game, and they were very kind, because I mean, they can get anybody to make a RAR sound and put all those effects on it. Like, they were very kind to say, we want to go get the original people and you know, the fans care a little because it's nice and nostalgic, but in truth, like, it's a sound. It's someone going, ah. And so they called and were like, yeah, we want to bring you back. It'll be totally fun. You can be Hirudegarde. And I was like, I don't really remember exactly what I did. Can you find a reference? And they're like, no, we have no tape. We have no reference. We've scoured the internet. Nobody has anything like screen grabbed or illegally screenshot of it. There was no record of what that sounded like. So why don't you just do what you would probably do if you were presented this character now? And we're going to guess that that's probably the same thing. That actually happens fairly often because as you know, in anime, sometimes characters can come back 5, 6, 10 years later. They'll pull back a character from a previous arc, or especially with a show that goes on as long as One Piece or Dragon Ball. So you never know when a character is suddenly going to come back. Like I have thought that Doflamingo, Don Quixote Doflamingo in One Piece was going to be gone forever. Like 5 times I have said goodbye to that character. Like, oh, this was really fun. I'm glad I got to do that. And then nothing for a couple of years. And then, hey, Rob, we got some more Doflamingo. I'm like, what? Yeah, you never know when you're done in anime.
How is that like, the Rob? Like when you voice heroic characters or like the good guy characters, like, you know, like Goten or Gridman, and then you voice villains like Doflamingo of all people, and like, you know, again, like with Stain or as an anti-hero, or even, you know, Reiner at times. How does that, as an actor, how do you like switch to those kind of characters?
Well, the good actor answer is that all characters you play are heroes in their own mind. You're always playing the hero, Ricky. But we all know that's a little bit BS. So I like playing bad guys a whole lot. I really, for a lot of reasons, I've actually talked about this at cons before. So villains are already villains, and they're already powerful by the time we meet them. Heroes are on the ascendancy. So as a character, and also as the person voicing that character, it's a lot more work to be a young striving hero. You're like, yeah, it's all like just so much effort and strength and screaming and trying, while the villains are like, because they're powerful. They can move a building. They're like, ugh. And it's only at the very end, when things go terribly wrong for the villain, do they ever have to exert anything. And usually it's short. You have like 10 minutes of screaming. So there's so much less screaming for the villains. It's so much easier. And I always wanted to be the villain. And it took until my voice got finally deep and gravelly enough that I got, because all the early ones were like way up here, super excited guys. Like, you know, Goten from Dragonball GT is like, hey, it's going to be great. And did a lot of those characters. And then finally, Justin Cook, and this is still a really long time ago because this will date it, but finally Justin Cook let me audition for a bad guy. And it was Sensui in YuYu Hakusho. Man. One is still to this day one of my favorite characters, but also because he was a bad guy. And I realized that you don't have to work that hard. You get right here on the microphone, and everything he says is just right here, and you're not yelling. And they're like, hey, what time do you need to come in? Do you rest your voice? And you're like, no, man, I'm good. I can do this all day because I'm not having to exert. And he's just whisper. And you rarely have to exert. You know, a lot of Doflamingo is just, other than the laughing. I will say Doflamingo is a beating because he laughs an awful lot. And that's like an ab workout. When they have him laugh over like 1 minute and 20 seconds of screen time, of things, there's a montage of things happening, and he's just going. And it's like the abs are dying. It's actually the only exercise I get. It's the only workout that I get. I really shouldn't complain. But yeah, much prefer bad guys. I also like really nice characters that turn into bad guys. Like you don't realize they're the bad guys. I think those are the most fun to play as an actor. Blood Sea was a very dark anime that I got to play a character that took a really dark turn. And sometimes directors will fool you. Like I've had some great directors, Chris Bevins, who's directed just tons and tons of Funimation and now everywhere else out in the world. It's a great director, and he was really big on not telling you everything about a show and saying like, don't Don't read the manga if it's based on a manga. Don't look ahead. Don't look online. Just be in the episode you're in. And so there were a bunch of times that I was characters vastly different than the characters I thought I was playing. Like, it was revealed later that they were a bad guy or that they were someone else. But he's like, no, I want you to be as fooled as the audience is. And only when the audience finds out do you find out that you're different. Like with Jalal.
Yeah.
Jalal in God, I'm blanking on everything, but Jalal Seagrain, he told me these are absolutely different people. You're playing two different people. They look similar. They're related to each other, but they're absolutely different. I want them to sound alike, but have totally different characters. I was like, okay. And then when it's finally revealed that it's just one person projecting into the other, I'm like, oh, you lied to me. And he's like, it's okay. Your characterizations weren't actually that different.
Yeah, no, that reminds me of a Sensui when he had the whole split personality thing.
Oh, one of my favorite episodes to ever record. When people ask me, like, what's your favorite episode? I have to say that the Sensui and 16 other Sensuis in his head was probably my favorite.
I still remember watching that as a kid. I can remember it clear as like watching the Toonami reels, like showing the previews, Yusuke and Sensui fighting each other, and then, you know, that fight was really iconic for me growing up because I think that's the first time I've ever learned anything about like split personality disorder was through Sensui and seeing how chaotic his mind was. And so, you know, you have the regular him and then the murderous him, the one that's like really kind, and then like he just flips back and forth until like you don't know who he is anymore until he starts like whipping on Yusuke.
And he doesn't know either.
Yeah.
Yeah. You realize that was also, and again, there's an interesting line because that was, like I said, the first bad guy I have ever gotten to play was Sensui, who was super moral and had a really strong moral code and was convinced that he was doing the right thing and righting wrongs. And yes, horrible things happened and people died because the execution of the ideal is wrong, but the impetus was right. And that is a really interesting character and also very similar, I think, to Stain.
Yeah.
So even though they sound totally differently, they're not the same. I feel like there's a connection across 17 years between these two characters that have good moral, or I guess it's bad morals, but good sense of justice. I don't know what it is. They have one thing really right and one thing really wrong.
It kind of reminds me of like what Thanos does in the MCU, where he's like, you know, what he says to Doctor Strange, like the strongest people have the strongest wills or something like that. Like they're willing to do the things that regular people are not willing to do. So I think with Stain, as much as we call him a villain, I think he's really more anti-hero because he still saved Midoriya, but then he's willing to kill people in the process of like trying to prove his point.
Yeah, right goals, bad execution.
Yeah,
bad and follow through.
And to speak on that, man, I have to talk about this. Attack on Titan is by far one of my top 5 favorite animes, and Reiner is like the epitome of that. Like he is someone who you thought was good. Turns out he's not as good. But then when they flip things around in season 4, where you see his point of view, it's like holy shit! Like,
well, and another like kind of in some ways dealing with bipolar when you see him have the breakdown in season 2, and he's there and he's hearing the voices. He's got both sides of this incredible sense of duty on both sides. So he just splits them and is like, no, you guys are my friends. Why are you being weird? When he just confesses everything weirdly on the wall. That's one of my fascinating scene that at first I hated and now I really come to love, when he's like, oh yeah, it's us. We totally did it. We're Titans. Come on, we're going.
He said it
and
so
then
casually.
He stands there staring at him. He goes, why are you looking at us? Come on, we got to go. Like this, he's dissociated completely with what he's done and who he's killed.
Because like I've read that. I remember reading that chapter and then watching the sub and then watching the dub, right? And there's a huge tonal difference when it comes to reading it, because he just flat out tells Eren like, hey, we're the Colossal and Armor Titan. And then when I listen to you, hearing it in English, it hits a little bit differently because it's as if someone's telling you that and you can understand them, unlike in the Japanese where you're reading subtitles.
You're just reading. Yeah, that's the thing. You're reading it both ways.
Yeah, so like when you did yours, it was just so casual. He's like, come on, let's go. Like, we did this. We're responsible. We need you to come with us. Like,
Yeah,
no
that's
normal person's
all.
gonna be like,
That's all
what?
down to Mike. I mean, that is Mike McFarlane, who directs all of Attack on Titan and does just an amazing job and is an amazing detailed person. Like, there's nothing that happens without it being a conscious choice in the dub of that show. And we all know that dubs are not the most important thing. The original art is great. We all listen to the original Japanese, but Mike was convinced that, like, okay, this is going on Cartoon Network. This is going to be, tons of people are going to see it, and tons of people, a way to it is through our work on the dub. It is going to be the best dub that we can possibly make. And I think it's one of the best dubs that anyone's put out. And I think that's largely due to him. But everything that happens in that show from the point of our acting standpoint is as a result of Mike McFarlane and the choices he made. And on that scene, he was absolutely like, put nothing on it. Put absolutely nothing, as though you were telling him what you had for lunch today and then move on. Because you Reiner are not allowing it to have any more importance than that, because that would cause you to shut down, which we'll see later. Like, you have to think of it as being not a thing, or you can't function. So I want you to treat it like it's not a thing at all.
What was going through your mind though, seeing that review? Because I still remember watching it. I was in church when I watched that scene.
You're so busted. You're so busted watching anime in church.
I couldn't, like, I had to internally scream. Like, I was in service watching it on my phone, and then, like, when that reveal happened, I'm like, I had to, like, get up as if I was going to use the restroom. I was like, oh my god. But what was going on through your mind, Rob? Like
in
just
the same way, I didn't know. I didn't read ahead. I didn't want to know. I didn't want it to have it spoiled until I was with, because as an actor, if you know something like that, you can unintentionally play it. You can put a little mustache twist in something. You can, and so I really like not knowing ahead of time if something like that's coming. So I did not know. And then at the end, towards the end of season 1, when it blew up and was such a huge deal, and it was clearly a very big deal, and people were calling for interviews, and people were trying to get us to conventions, and like radio shows from LA were calling, and they were calling me. And I'm like, I'm like one of the guys. I have like 20 lines in all of season 1. I'm just background. Why are they interested in Reiner? People are like, oh my God, I can't believe you got Reiner. That's so, I'm like, all right. Clearly there's something about to happen. At that point, I knew, like, okay, it's gonna, I don't know who and I don't know when, but I know that there's going to be a reveal happening very soon. And then it was like, you couldn't talk about it because you didn't want to spoil it for the people that had just started the show, because it was happening at different, everyone watches it at a different time. So the first few conventions, they're like, yeah, I like Reiner. He's really cool. Seems really dedicated. He's kind of low key. But you didn't want to spoil anything because you didn't want to steal that moment, because you had it in church, but it is a religious experience. Like, you don't want to steal that moment from people.
No, Reiner is a character that I just from reading and rewatching the anime over and over again, like his character stands out a lot to me. Like,
I just
not
love
only
what
does
they
he
did in season 4. I love that we got to see his backstory. We got to see some of the motivation. It makes it a very complex. I mean, I'd filled in those blanks slightly differently, but along the same lines. Like, he was a hero forced into this. He was not happy about it, but he was doing the noble thing in his mind. Like, I had that, but the fact that they took the time to go back and show us how it got there, I thought it was fabulous.
Oh yeah, that's what's great about Attack on Titan. Like, at this point of the show, or this, like, we're after season 4 part 2 ended.
Yeah,
it's like you don't even know who's good and who's bad anymore, and it's just them fighting Eren now. And that's
it's everybody. It's everybody. Everybody's dirty, but everybody's trying. You don't know who to root against, and Eren is just like, no, I'm just gonna burn it all down.
But as you watch this show and portray Reiner, though, like, what's has your thoughts changed on him personally, or do you just go with what they give you?
Well, I mean, this is interesting that we're talking about this in the middle of a war efforts happening in various places around the world, but there's soldiers being brought up for war crimes that were like, I did what I was ordered to do. And if I didn't do it, I would have been in trouble and I wouldn't have been able to feed my family. And they're like, yeah, but you still did it. So there's, war crimes tribunals happening right now for people that just followed orders. And so that's, I mean, in a lot of ways, that's Reiner's position. The interesting thing there is that Reiner's not asking for forgiveness. He wants to be punished. He wants to be punished for all of it because he knows that he was complicit. He knows why he was complicit. He probably might make the same choices again because it was to protect his family and his homeland, but he doesn't think there's anything noble about it. And he's waiting for someone to punish him. And I think that's why he's throwing himself in. I mean, he's like, yeah, you know, hoping that someone will take him out and end it because he doesn't think he deserves any kind of absolution.
Yeah, fantastic point there, Rob. Because like even in like the show, he wants to die.
Yeah.
But the irony is like he wants to die, but he keeps surviving.
Yeah, he's like, why? Oh, you're worthy. Why don't you bite my neck and take this? No. Oh God. Okay.
He
All
was
right,
willing to
here
give
we
his
go
life to
again.
Falco, and then he doesn't do it.
He can take it. No. Oh.
Or like in season 3, you know, right when they hit him with the thunder spears, he's like, "All right, I'm ready to go. Like, take me out now. Get saved."
Great. They've solved it. I'm out now. Had my run. Wait, what? Oh, that takedown was brutal. That's one of the most brutal things. When they hit him at the end of 3 with the thunder spears and the explode, that is so brutal. It was hard to watch, even though I was not having to voice that much of it. Although they do let me voice all the screamy stuff too. There's some secret Easter eggs for those of you that are Attack on Titan fans. Every once in a while, Mike will throw in when in Titan form. He says this time instead of saying "rar," which is usually all it says in the script, it's just like "rar." He's like, "Say Rob." So I'll go Rob. So they're in there. You got to look for them.
Nice to know. I'm gonna go back and
for you to look for.
Yeah, it's just, you know, like I said, with Reiner, man, this character is just written so well, and to know that, you know, because when I announced that you were going to be on the podcast, like a lot of my friends or Attack on Titan fans, they were excited for this because on my show I've talked about Attack on Titan a lot. I've dedicated like several episodes in just reviewing the manga or the past 2 seasons. That, you know, with season 4 being split now, it's great to be able to finally have someone on that cast and just speak with them and geek out about it as a fan too, and to hear your perspective as an actor in that show. Because, you know, if it wasn't, I gotta say, if it wasn't for that 5-year gap between season 1 and season 2, I think it would have been really up there. I mean, even with season 4, with Mappa bringing it back, it's still up there. It's just a show that really stands out, and you know, you got to put in the time to watch it to really understand the story.
Yeah, it's you can't come in midway and you can't get turned off in like 2 episodes. You have to make a commitment. And that's what I tell people. Like, if you're going to start it, because I have, you know, friends that are not into anime that much. They're like, what is this thing that everybody talks about? I'm like, all right. My Hero Academia, you could dip in and out of that. You'll figure it out. Like the first season, you can skim or whatever. But Attack on Titan, like, you got to watch it. And you kind of got to watch it from the beginning, and you got to invest in these people. And there are some horrible moments in your future because people that you love are going to be ripped into many small pieces and digested. But it's a testament to the power of strong writing. And I think that's the thing that I love about anime in general, is that they can take any issue, any subject, and make it powerful, whether it's calligraphy or working in an office or a soccer team or whatever, and find the drama in it. And but I don't think you could get any higher stakes or any higher drama than in Attack on Titan.
Yeah,
literally every episode is for the future of the world.
Isayama has a great way of like making you connect with certain characters and then just ripping them from you. Like, no, they're gone. Like, you can't do nothing about it.
You know, if you see a flashback with a person's mother at any point in time, that's a dead person, except for Reiner. Like, they're not going to do well. There's a couple of new shows that I've recorded, and there's like, it's the soldier, and he's just been a lieutenant and a soldier the whole time. But then in one episode, you see him going home to visit his family. I'm like, oh God, he's dead. He's dead. Showed the family. He's got a backstory. He's no way he's making it through this episode.
If you want to start your own podcast like Spoiler Force, then sign up with Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has helped hundreds of thousands of users like me to begin their podcasting journey. With easy-to-use tools, you can effectively get your podcast into different platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and more. You can view your stats, create audio clips, and even have your own podcasting website. Buzzsprout offers ideas, tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you improve your podcast. Follow the link below, and once you sign up, you'll get a $20 Amazon gift card. This will let Buzzsprout know that I sent you and will also support Spoiler Force Podcast. If you want a simpler way to record both video and audio for your podcast, then sign up with StreamYard. StreamYard is the perfect program to create podcasts, host live streams, and even do video calls. There are many tools that can help you create and design your own personal studio. You can screen share, read live comments, and stream to different destinations like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can also download your video and audio once you're done with your recording session. Follow the link below, and once you sign up with the basic or pro plan, you'll earn a $10 credit to use for StreamYard. Happy podcasting. Rob, you mentioned conventions earlier, man. Like, how has that been like for you? Have you gone back to any since since the pandemic and all that?
I have only been to one, and it was local in the Texas area. But I have not been. And in truth, I have not had much time to go to conventions anyway. When I go, people are excited and also super annoyed because they've been like, dude, I've been waiting 5 years to finish this one poster, and you're the only name, and you haven't done a convention. I drove all the way from Oklahoma just to get you to sign this thing. Because I work a corporate job. I do corporate video production, and it takes me a lot of travel involved with that. And with family stuff, there's not a lot of time for travel for anime. So I haven't done a lot of conventions. And then I did one back locally in the area, and it was really cool. And I realized how much I missed it and how great it was to see everybody, and how like it's amazing that this tribe of people has this place to get together and connect. And was really sad when that got ripped away. Like when conventions had to stop, when they went online, it's not the same. And there's something unique specifically to anime conventions that is like a bunch of people getting together to celebrate a thing they love, and nobody's going to judge you for loving it. No one is. You can just geek out as hard as you want. You can have the costume, you can have everything perfect, and nobody's going to roll their eyes. They're going to be like, nice, respect for the commitment. And that's rare in the world. There's very few eye rolls at an anime convention. It's even if someone's making their first costume, their first cosplay, and it's not great, people are like, hey, that's really good. I like that. I know what episode that's from. It's a supportive world, and it was sad that it went away, and I hope it continues to come back. I hope that, people get vaccinated, and we start going through less and less stringent variations on this virus so that we can start to come back.
Yeah, I agree with with anime conventions, because I'm not saying like it's very much different from any other conventions, but when I go to anime conventions, there's an energy there that's a lot different when you meet people and they all have, when you go there, everyone has the same interests.
With the bigger pop culture conventions, there is some of that, but then there's also a little bit of like, we want to piss on other people. We're like, oh, they like that show, I don't like that. And that costume is stupid. Like, there's a little bit of that, like, I want to prove that I'm better than you. And I see much less of that it's there a certain extent, but I see much less of that in the anime only world. It's a way more supportive. It's supportive of transgender, and it's supportive of so many niche pocket groups. And that's one of the things that I love about the anime community.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely that for sure too. Like it's very accepting. You can dress however you want, and people will be like, "Hey, I rock with that costume." I'm not saying like pop culture conventions are bad, but I think it's because there's so many different fandoms there. Like you got the people who watch the TV shows, the comic book fans, like the strictly comic book fans. They don't even like watch people who don't even watch the animated stuff. They just there for the books. Then you got your collectors there, and then then there's like the anime section at the pop culture convention. So like there's so many different divisions there, and
there's Doctor Who fans, and then there's weirdly pirates who there hasn't been a pirate movie in a really long time, but okay, I guess our flag means death. That's a new pirate.
But I hope that you go to the convention soon, man. I've been living in Texas for like a good 3 to 4 months now, and I'm slowly going to more conventions, not just but I'm trying to slow down. I'm not trying to like go out to everything because everything's so costly nowadays.
Oh yeah,
Um, but yeah, I'm going to by the time this episode drops, I already would have been there, but due to the time of the recording, I'll be going to Acon, and that's a
nice.
big anime convention there too. I'm very excited to go there. um I haven't been to like a big convention like that in a while. I've been hitting up these local ones, these smaller ones,
Right.
but to go to something like Acon or even Fan Expo Dallas, a big comic convention, I'm excited for those. But yeah, man, I really do hope I get to meet you at a con, man. Like that's something I love doing. Or at least when I speak with my guests, like because a lot like there's like 2 or 3 guests that I've had on my show that it's gonna be at Acon, and I can't wait to meet them in
Oh,
person.
you get to actually see them in
Yeah.
person. Oh, fantastic.
So that's something like I want to do. Like if I get to have voice actors or any other actors come on the show and then meet them in person, like, hey, like I have something to talk to you about. Like hey, you were on my show.
Well, and that's what you can put on the wall. You get more pictures for over your shoulder when you see them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to your acting, has there been anything else that you were trying to do besides voice acting? Like, were you trying to do like live acting or even stage play at
Well,
all?
I came at it backwards. There's a lot of like pure artists that then go do commercials and other things to just try to stay alive, but they're theater or film artists at their core. I was exactly the other way. I was a marketing and sales guy that was like, hey, this acting stuff looks like fun. I want to leave and join the circus. So I went to do commercials. I wanted to do commercials and voiceover and industrial training stuff because you could do that in Texas. I didn't ever think I was going to be a movie star or a TV star. And then through meeting that community, that's how I got involved with improv comedy. That's how I got involved with anime. Then I started doing a lot of theater. Now I've gotten to do a lot of theater. And like now, like, oh, I want to be an actor. Before, and usually it's like actors who don't want to sell out. I sold out way early and then found artistic integrity much later in life. Which is what I tell all the artists that I know. Just sell out as quick as you can. Just start getting paid, and then you'll find some integrity along the way. But I've gotten to do a little bit of TV and a little bit of film. I'm much more interested in making the films now. I realize they're much... The producer in me takes over, and even when I'm auditioning for a role, and I'm like, oh, I probably should do this and this. Oh, but you know who would be good for this? They should totally call Brandon Potter. He would be great at this role. And then I shoot myself in the foot.
Have you done?
I'm a much better producer than I am an actor.
Have you done any like producing or even like behind the scenes stuff for anime at all? Have you considered that?
Not much anime. I have not ever directed. There's a couple times that I've been asked to fill in and help direct different shows, but one of my good friends, Aaron Roberts, who's a great voiceover actor, he's Comedy Woods in My Hero Academia, but he has finally made the leap and now is directing at Crunchyroll, and I'm like, I'm watching him to see, like, what do you think? How is that? How does that feel? So it's something that I've always kept in the back of my pocket. Like, if the other things dry up, if I suddenly can't make money in my other ways, that's something. Again, the same way with conventions. Like, it's the poor actors survival fund. Like, oh, I can go to conventions if everything else falls through. Which is a terrible way to look at it, because I know a lot of people that make conventions their number one priority. And they're much more successful than I am financially with that, but also they're way more connected to their audience and their fan base. So there's a real value in that. But I haven't started directing yet. That's another guy you should get on your show. You need to get Aaron on your show, Aaron Roberts, and see about what it's like to move from in front of the microphone to behind the computer as a director.
Oh, definitely. I'll reach out to him for sure.
I'll help you track him down. That would be fun.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I like seeing when people just like work, like, not just voice acting, but when they branch out to other parts of like what like what Funimation or Crunchyroll, like they do like ADR or like writing or some sort of producing, like something like that's not acting, but they're still in that world.
It's a massive organization. I mean, it's massive. All of the different people, that we see our little voice dub acting side. That's this tiny little wing of the building, and then you realize that there are hundreds upon hundreds of other humans that are dealing with so much more large scale big things than our part of the puzzle. But yeah, it's also been interesting now to be part of the Crunchyroll family as opposed to Funimation. Because I've been in with Funimation, like I said, since probably 97, 98, I think is when I started voicing things for Funimation. For those of you wondering, I was 2 at the time. It's not true. It's not true. But yeah, and seeing the change in corporate culture, which has not been very extreme, but it was interesting because Funimation was part of Sony, and now Funimation is together with Crunchyroll. So it's been
there's
an
like
interesting
good
journey.
yeah, there's pros and cons to everything. With that merger, there's a pro to where there's a lot more projects to be able to work on now because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's more competition because it used to be like our little North Texas actors group had a pretty good lock on Funimation stuff, and now it's like, oh, all these New York and LA guys want a piece of this now. Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
that too.
all right, let's step it. We'll just audition for it. Let's go. Let's bring it on. Let's do it. And there's like, oh, you're a movie star. Yeah, that's
I spoke with Mark Witten about that. Like, just how does that feel when you're not that it's not that like not just voice acting, but like doing work, the whole stay at home thing and voicing, and then how it's easier to kind of do that, but now there's more people doing that. I spoke with Mark about that, and he was telling me like, it's, I'm paraphrasing here, but you can go back to the episode, I forgot the number, but 96, if you're interested. He talks, I asked him, I was like, hey man, how does that feel when you know that there's the Hollywood actors, or like actors on the higher end coming in and doing pretty much what you're doing when it comes to voice acting? And he gave me a really good answer. He was like, it's not so much competition, but now it's just they bring that, and now you just have to find, it's kind of like inspiration. You have to find your work now. He didn't look at it in a bad way, but I want to know what's your thoughts on that though, Rob. Like, do you kind of see it the same way too, or or does it push you to find more projects to work on?
Well, it's what it did was it took out the bottom layer of projects. Meaning you would do a bunch of projects, and some of them were low budget and some of them were higher budget. And usually our agents would negotiate those kind of rates and that sort of thing. But now those lower budget things have pretty much gone away, because if they're like already going to be low budget, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to go to Voice 123 and pay $50 for this. And I don't mind that, because it gives some people a chance that wouldn't have otherwise had a chance, that gets past the gatekeeper of the agents and the things that makes it hard for people to have a choice. The only problem is that it means that 50 people do the full job. They record the whole thing, spend their time, spend their effort, and one of them gets paid for it. As opposed to auditioning, where you do 15 seconds and they pick you, and then they say, okay, now, yes, we will pay you, so go ahead and do the job. So it's a way, it makes a lot of people work for free. It's like if Uber said, we're not going to assign who gets the job. Everybody drive to Ricky's house, and the one car he gets in gets paid, and everybody else just has to drive back home. Like, that's not fair to me. That's, to me, a producer taking advantage of people. But again, you're trying to get in the business. Of course, you're going to do that job for $50. And if you're setting up and getting used to your voice on the mic, that's good training. So I don't fault the people who are doing it. I just think like, oh, if you have a project you care about, you should pay the voice actor what they're worth, for their time.
Ones you want to use for.
Yeah. And a lot of times they're like, send the whole thing, edit it yourself, make it sound as close to perfect. Here are the timings we want you to hit. And if you're selected, we will use that. We're not going to give you any direction. We record it again. We're going to use the thing you sent, but we're going to ignore the other 50 or 100 that we got. I'm like, that's taking advantage of a lot of people's work effort.
Yeah, it's very time consuming as well.
Yeah, so I'm torn on that. I certainly don't begrudge anybody that is doing it as a hustle to get ahead. It's all about a hustle. I mean, I have 25 jobs, so I get a hustle and a side. Eventually, you have so many side hustles, you don't know what the real hustle is.
Has there been any if you are still watching like anime or cartoons or whatever, like, are there any projects that you'd like to be on at all, like, or did you find interesting at all that you might want to be a part of?
Well, people always ask about the ones that got away, Like we were all hoping Funimation was in the bidding war to get One Punch Man
Okay.
long years ago, and we were all like, because we all wanted to do that. But yeah, I haven't even. It actually has been so busy, as you know. We talked earlier before that there's been a lot of family stuff going on for me. So I kind of have been in a bubble since the beginning of the year. So I'm just starting to like reemerge and say like, what's going on in the world? What new has started? What's happening? And I would love to do some more dubbing. I still really want to do some original animation. And I know everybody says that, so I'm not rare in that. A lot of that happens in LA, but having gotten to originate some characters for video games, I'm like, I would love to get to do a character where they're basing it on the voice as opposed to basing it on something that someone else has already done. That would be really cool. Like to voice the previs and then let them just draw the character based on what you sound like. I've gotten to do a few small projects like that, and that's the ultimate goal, is to do just a real original first time voice on a character, not a second pass at something someone else has done.
Yeah, I've never really, I guess, considered that before too. Like just basing a character off the voice. I know, like with a lot of like animation, it's always just you get the character and then you find the voice versus the other way around. So I never thought of that like that. That's a great perspective to see.
Yeah, a lot of times they'll with they're going in what they call previs, they'll use just still screens images of what they're envisioning the character to be like, and then record some audio and then animate to the audio. And that's something that I would love to be a part of. That's kind of happens with some of the video games. They'll have a script that they haven't created yet, and then they'll let us voice it, and then they'll create it to match the voice. So that's a lot of fun. That was got to do that a lot with there's a game called Orcs Must Die, and Max the War Mage was a fun character because they let me just improvise and just go on forever, and then they wrote it into the game.
Have you done a lot of that as well? Like I know like for dubbing they don't really recommend that, but I don't know, just based off on your charismatic personality, have you improvised on like when you dubbed over animation?
Sometimes, I mean, a lot of times we'll go in with the script that's pretty close to the translation, and if it doesn't fit exactly right, they'll let us try it. And some directors really appreciate that, and some directors hate it. They're like, I got it. Most of the directors always have to be writers. That happens because it goes to a translator and then it goes to a writer. But the writer is writing what they imagine it's going to be like. They don't know what the actors necessarily, they may not even know who the actor's been cast for that role. They're just putting it in and trying to match up the flaps as best they can, the mouth movements. It's like, this looks like about 7 syllables. So I got to figure out a way to get this idea across in 7 syllables. And if you've ever watched an anime director specifically for the dub writing scripts, it's one of the funniest things because they just have to talk out loud. There's no other way. Hey guys, look out. Hey guys. Hey, you guys, look out. Hey, you guys, look over there. Okay, good. Yeah. Hey, you guys, look over there. And then they keep going. So it looks like they're having a mental breakdown, but then it's always different in the room. So the director is having to shift things on the fly. Like, okay, that's a 2 beat at the end. That should really be thank you. So instead of saying thank you guys for being here, I want you to say, hey, I'm glad you guys were here. Thank you. Something like let's shift it around. And sometimes they like actors' input on that process, and sometimes they really just want you to shut up and say the words. I think most directors now know, like, oh, Rob's going to throw in an alt. Rob's going to throw in another take at it. What I usually do is do the line as scripted, and then while it's still recording, I'll go, or he could say, hey, that's not a banana.
After speaking with several like English dub actors that work with, like, especially with anime having to match the mouth flaps and timing and all that, I've come to really appreciate that side of just dubbing. Like I'm not saying like one's superior than the other, but it's just I'm going to be honest, I did think like that at one point until I started talking to English dub actors and seeing the effort that gets put into it. So I'm not going to lie on the podcast and say I didn't at one point, but I really respect the game that you guys put in, man. Like it's I never considered like you guys have to really make sure it matches.
Yeah, it's a super technical art form, and then there are people that are great at the technical side and not great at also having the emotional content. behind it. There are people that are really good at the emotional content. They're amazing actors, and they're not great at the technical side. So the people that can do both are the ones that I'm most in awe of. And I think like, because there can be subpar performances and the show is going to be fine. Like everybody loves it. They love the content of it. They love the original. They're going to listen to the dub, or they won't listen to it. They'll just watch it in the Japanese. That's fine. But there are people that care, and there are directors that care, and are like, no, this is going to be the way in for some people. And we want to make it as good as possible. And we want to have some real emotional content, and we're going to have to match the flaps. Like the Japanese don't even try to match the flaps. They're not even close. But like it is the Funimation and Crunchyroll ethos that like, we are not going to be Speed Racer. We're going to spend the time. We're going to hire the writers. We're going to make it work. And it's going to A, make sense. And B, it's going to match the motion of the mouth.
Oh man, Speed Racer though. I grew up with watching that. I knew as a kid I didn't realize how bad it was until as I got older, and I'm like, oh my god, like I was watching this, like it does not match. No wonder this show got like that's why they got made fun of a lot, because
it was a parody of itself, but people still loved it.
But Rob, as we come to an end here, man, again, I just want to thank you for this opportunity and just to geek out with you. I do have some fan questions here.
All right, let's do it. Speed round.
So the first one here is by Julian from What's in My Head podcast. You were on his show as well too.
Yes.
Julian asks, who would win in a fight, Stain or Reiner?
Wow. Well, in which form?
He didn't specify, but
I'm gonna say you push Reiner far enough, and you're dealing with another being altogether. And I don't even think Stain could handle that. I think it's definitely Titan for the win. If Reiner is trying not to do that, or for some reason does not have that available to him, then maybe Stain. I mean, God. But could you imagine Stain getting some blood and just freezing a giant Titan?
Or that's like mid shift as
just like and then he just that's fascinating. Wonder what blood type colossal with armored Titans are. That's interesting.
Well, the thing is, could Stain even ingest that?
Like, what if, like, does it even work
if he ingests Titan blood, what if he gets killed?
Because like this it's done quick. I got a great question of like, what happens if Stain gets a fever blister or a cut on his mouth? Does he freeze himself?
I think that's what happened in the anime, honestly.
I think so too. I mean, they haven't said yet, but I think that may be what it is. He got so worked up with his speech that he got some of his own blood and ingested.
The next question here is by Salem Cosplay. As we spoke about Reiner earlier in the show, she's a big Attack on Titan fan as well, and she even did like a whole, like, I believe, thesis or something for her college paper based on Attack on Titan. But she wants to know, did you feel sympathy for Reiner when he realizes that he's being brainwashed by Marleyan propaganda?
Oh, absolutely. I felt like Reiner was a victim really early on. I mean, I had made those decisions in trying to figure out like what's going on with this guy and why is he skitzing out. He's clearly not happy with what he's being asked to do. And so I had kind of already decided in my own head that I was going to play it, that he was in some ways a victim of other people's games. And then that's what it actually was, which works out well. Of course, I would have just disregarded that and never mentioned it if that was not the way that the writers decided to go. But yeah, I totally feel like he's a pawn, and it's even sadder because he's aware he's a pawn and still has to go through it, or thinks thinks there's no way out. Like he's fully aware that he is being manipulated and used, and he has to do it anyway in his mind.
Yeah, I think once he realized, like, both, like, especially in season 2, when he was like debating on, I don't even know who I am anymore, and when he's deciding on being the soldier or the warrior, and then right before the transformation on the wall, like you see the huge conflict in him.
I mean, he almost has to separate. He has a conversation in his head, like he's two separate people. Yeah. I'm just showing off the patterns of my.
No, he just to kind of add on to that, like, just even when he spoke to Eren on the trees, like, we're gonna go back and make things normal again. Eren's like, are you effing crazy?
Hang out, bro.
It's like, you literally just like transformed on the wall, took me out, and you're talking about being friends again? What the hell is wrong with you?
I mean, I killed a lot of them, but we're still gonna be bros, right? We're just gonna hang out. Listen to some Dave Matthews around the fire.
It's crazy to see how far he's come. Like I said, man, I to be able to speak with you who voices Reiner and just talk about this, it makes me geek out because like I love seeing this progression of this character. But to the last question here, by Patty Heyman, I don't know their pronouns, but they ask, what was it
Hi,
like
Patty.
playing? They ask, how was it like playing an over the top villain like Doflamingo? Did you have fun with the lines? And did you ever think to yourself, this guy is nuts?
Oh, he is completely nuts. And that's the great thing about Doflamingo as compared to Stain or, like we said, YuYu Hakusho way back, or Reiner, who is like conflicted. Because interestingly, when they were recording the flashback stuff for Reiner, like his backstory and his childhood stuff, it was the same time in the calendar year that we were recording some flashbacks for Doflamingo. And I was super worried. I'm like, oh, don't try to soften Doflamingo and give us like reasons why he was mistreated. Like, I just want him to just be a terrible, terrible, terrible person. And then they went through all of the backstory and they're like, nope, yeah, he's just an awful, awful person. And I love that. I love that he is completely unapologetic and he is ready to just mess things up. He can be arrested and thrown in the brig somewhere and unable to use his powers, and he's like, I can still just mess with the politics of this place. It'll be fun. I'm just gonna see what happens. Yeah, I love over the top. I love One Piece because there's no conversations about subtlety. You can just be as big and broad as you want and have a big time. And yeah, it is a lot of fun to get to play that character, and I can't believe he keeps coming back year after year after year, and then he finally got his whole own arc. It was lovely. It was lovely to be that bad.
That's one thing that I can appreciate about One Piece. Like, I'm not a big One Piece fan, but I can appreciate the fact that they are still ongoing. And I was joking with Lucy Christian about this. Like, they're over 1,000 episodes in, and it's still ongoing. So you guys have jobs for One Piece, if nothing else. If nothing doesn't really plan out well for you guys in the future, you still have.
Yeah, there's just going to be a One Piece dub actors retirement home, and we all just live in like an old Melrose Place style building in wheelchairs. And they're still going to be cranking out episodes.
But Rob, again, thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate this. And again, just for you to be on this show, it's been an honor. And for fans and followers who want to follow you, man, how can they do that?
I'm the laziest voice actor ever. I have a Facebook fan page. Facebook fan page, Robert McCollum voice actor, and on Twitter, I think I'm VO Rob McCollum, but I'm terrible at posting on either of those. But yes, the Facebook fan page is the best way. I check the messages and I can send stuff out through that. So that is the way to follow. I was all excited because I got like 1,500 people follow, and then I've never done anything with it because I'm the worst. I'm the worst. But Ricky, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate. Good luck to Spoiler Force podcast. 126 episodes. That's super impressive. So I can't wait to see where it goes from there. It's gonna go huge. I want that wall behind you completely full of famous people. And yeah, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you again, man. And for the fans and followers, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to Spoiler Force. Check out the Discord. Make sure you guys check out the Patreon as well to help this community grow. And again, Rob, I cannot thank you enough. So yeah, this is episode 126. Thank you guys so much, and have a great day.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to give a review and rate Spoiler Force Podcast. If you want to get all Spoiler Force updates or even peeks at behind the scenes, you can join the Spoiler Force Discord community. And if you'd like to show support, give tips, recommendations, sponsorships, or any collaborations, you can email me at rickyvang92@gmail.com.